Good morning.
Hey, hey,
How you doing?
I'm good. I
Good.
need my morning coffee, but other than that, I am fine. What's your week been like?
I'm sorry, what?
What's your week been like?
Oh, it's been busy. I got my I don't know if you heard, I got my LC, so I'm now official. I can call what I do counseling. So that's great. That's a big step. And then yeah, just kind of puzzling out, figuring out what the next steps look like.
Well,
So,
I'm starting school in a couple of weeks.
oh, what are you doing?
You know, I've been very fortunate with having good jobs. I always tell people I on paper I'm usually the dumbest person in most of the rooms that I'm in. I'm very, very smart, but not very well educated. So I'm going to go back and complete my bachelor's. I'm gonna do it in business administration.
Fantastic. I think that sounds like a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so are you going to do it at UAB? Or where are you planning to do it?
My goal is to complete my prereqs at Lawson and then
Okay.
transfer to either UAB or Alabama A&M and do
Fantastic.
online.
That's great. That's super. Yeah, my dad did his master's at A&M.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So, and we used to live out near there also. But that sounds fantastic. Hey, Paula.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good
Paul, are
morning.
you back? Are you back?
I've been back for 2 weeks. I've been back long enough to have COVID and recover from it
Oh,
mostly.
no.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I avoided it for 2.5 years though.
That was your first time?
Mm-hmm.
Look at you. I think I'm on twice. Let's see, one. Yeah, I think I'm on this is I had it twice. Uh
Oh, once is enough.
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Y'all got your coffee. I'm gonna have to get a refill on mine. I'll be right back.
Go right
Take your time.
ahead. How's life treating you these days, Tony?
If it got any better, I get a little nervous.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, if it got any better, I would be a little bit nervous.
Hey, Rob.
Hello, good morning.
Robert,
Tony,
sir.
It's the first time Tony's been back in a while, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been kind of slipped. I've been backsliding, as they used to say.
you've been off having adventures.
Most of it was work. Why didn't I come last Sunday? I think I just overslept last Sunday. I'm just gonna be honest.
Oh, that was tempting to do today.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Dave.
Oh.
Is Miller going to join us?
Yes, they've got computer update issues happening.
I gotcha. So I just got an Oculus. And I'm
Oh
thinking,
my God.
I know, I think we need to do virtual church in 3D.
Okay, what is an Oculus?
It's a virtual reality headset.
Okay.
It's made by, it's the company is Mark Zuckerberg's company, which I hate, but apart from that, it's pretty cool. So I got it. We're going to be doing VR exposure in therapy. So
You're doing it for work.
Oh, but I'm doing it for fun. I got Beat Saber.
Beat Saber, and then there's another game called Mechanics. Hold on.
Okay.
And you can play with people on that one. Those little games where you interact with children, stay away from them. Like the little rec center and all that. Those kids are terrible. Just awful.
Did they make you cry, Tony?
They almost I really felt like I was on the school ground again, being bullied again. Like I was like, I'll never go back to that life.
No. I'll stay away from that.
I might have to send you that game though. It's really, really fun. It's like playing. Imagine playing soccer with just one or two people.
Yeah.
So you either got a team of one, a team of two, and instead of being a soccer player, you're this big robot that shoots its arms to hit the ball.
Oh, nice.
And like
All
you can like guide how the ball goes when you how your hands go before you hit the. It's so much fun.
right. I'll definitely check it out. No,
I
I
am
love
such a nerd.
I love it. I love it. Well, so yeah, I mean, I am thinking, I mean, just like I know there were churches in Second Life and stuff like that, but I've thought about other ways of doing online stuff. There's one Wade Langer does Twitch. He's a pastor in Tuscaloosa, and he does Twitch streaming. So anyway, I'm old school. Zoom, you know. I think everyone on the screen is, you know, definitely not in the under 35 crowd. No longer, no longer a young adult. So
Wait, what?
what?
When did that happen?
I'm not cutting edge anymore. Yeah. Well, so Miller's on the way. So we will assign roles in just a minute. Tony, you're talking about doing house church at your place.
Yes.
So I mean, just so for an update, and those of you who are listening, you got any potential dates in mind?
Actually, I want to so look.
I know, yeah, that's good. But
it can't be an every Sunday thing because my life is out of control right now. So I'm thinking about twice a month.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to start next week.
I think that's great. So what time are you planning on doing it?
I like 2. That gives me a time to get up and then cook. And yeah, so we're at 2:00.
Okay. So anyone in Birmingham, if you want to participate in live house church, Tony's place, how should it, I guess maybe will you post something on the St. Junior group?
Absolutely.
All right, and we can also put it in the meetup group as well. So super. If anyone else wants to do house church in their home, let me know. I will be glad to coach you in getting that set up. So all right. Well, I'll tell you what, how about we go ahead and get started? And if Miller gets on before we get to the New Testament, Miller can do the New Testament one. And if not, I'll take it. Excuse me. And let's stick with the old-timey roles. We've been doing fruit basket turnover recently. Tony,
Yes.
Do you mind doing the liturgy?
I would love to.
And Rob, can you be voice of the people?
I can.
And then Paula, if you will take the Hebrew Bible reading, that's the one I'm going to be preaching on today. So, all right, let's get the liturgy up. Here we go.
I found the game. It's called Ultimax. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, do yes.
All right. Good morning. On this day in 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law. In 2012, the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. It is the birthday of Virginia Foster Dewar in 1903 in Birmingham, Alabama, who, though born into a thoroughly racist family, would go on to become a civil rights activist. Today is also the day that Hiroshima, Japan, holds its annual A-Bomb Day. The A-Bomb Day at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. Participants remember the dead of Hiroshima and pray for peace throughout the world. Greetings. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Hear these words of invitation.
The hospitality of God knows no bounds.
The love of God is immeasurable.
The generosity of God is beyond our wildest dreams.
We gather today as invited ones,
as beloved ones,
as blessed ones.
Draw near and let us break the bread of life.
All right, today's responsive reading come. What, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I just realized I didn't make this responsive. So why don't you guys just share out every other line? I forgot to bold it.
That
You want
works.
to? You say every other line. You want couplets.
Yeah, do couplets. That's right.
Okay, let's do that then. Okay, great. The source of reading today comes from Psalms 119, 129 through 136. Listen to what's right, Lord. Pay attention to my cry.
Listen closely to my prayer. It's spoken by lips that don't lie.
My justice comes from you. Let your eyes see what is the right.
You have examined my heart, testing me at night.
You've looked me over closely, but haven't found anything wrong.
My mouth doesn't sin, but these other people's deeds?
I have avoided such violent ways by the command from your lips.
My steps are set firmly on your paths. My feet haven't slipped.
I cry out to you because you answer me. So tilt your ears towards me now. Listen to what I'm saying.
Manifest your faithful love in amazing ways, because you are the one who saves those who take refuge in you. Saving them from their, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, that was yours. I thought you had stopped.
Saving them from their attackers by your strong hand.
Thank y'all for playing improv with me on that one. So well done.
Genesis 32, 22 through 21. Okay. Jacob got up during the night, took his 2 wives, his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons and crossed the Jabbok River's shallow water. He took them and everything that belonged to him, and he helped them across the river. But Jacob stayed apart by himself. A man wrestled with him until dawn broke. When the man saw that he couldn't defeat Jacob, he grabbed Jacob's thigh and tore a muscle in Jacob's thigh as he wrestled with him. The man said, "Let me go, because the dawn is breaking." But Jacob said, "I won't let you go until you bless me." He said to Jacob, "What's your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name won't be Jacob any longer, but Israel, because you struggled with God and with men and won." Jacob also asked and said, "Tell me your name." But he said, "Why do you ask my name?" And he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel because and my life has been changed. The sun rose as Jacob passed Peniel, limping because of his thigh.
Would you like me to read?
Oh, yes. Hey, Miller, I didn't see you come in. Yes, please read the Matthew passage.
Sorry, thanks. Matthew 13, 31 to 33, and 44 through 52. When Jesus heard about John, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. When the crowds learned this, they followed him on foot from the cities. When Jesus arrived and saw a large crowd, he had compassion for them and healed those who were sick. That evening, his disciples came and said to him, "This is an isolated place, and it's getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said to them, "There's no need to send them away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here except 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He said, "Bring them here to me." He ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, and broke the loaves apart and gave them to his disciples. Then the disciples gave them to the crowds. Everyone ate until they were full, and they filled 12 baskets with the leftovers. About 5,000 men, plus women and children, had eaten. May God bless the hearing of this word.
Thanks be to God.
Okay. Besides, an improv on one holy word. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Matthew 14, 21. All these years, I imagine it as so many men fed by the miracle of 2 fish and 5 loaves. And then some others never realizing that the real miracle at Jesus's kind table, which was more like a picnic, was the besideness of it all. This amazing story tells that after all the women and children were fed first, of course, there was food enough to feed 5,000 men, and even more since they gathered 12 baskets of leftovers for the food pantry. The miracle in that day and ours is how Jesus cares for those most in need. Perhaps watching the ones who expected priority wait, he did often. Well, no, that's not true. I know I'm just revealing that my one word revelation reminded me I have always been seen, while the miracle is that there's never a limit. There's never a limit on God's besides the bread and fish. Can you taste my love?
Thank you. We'll go into a time of prayer. So I guess one of the things I like about that poem, and I realized afterwards, I got the Common English Bible translation, which says plus women and children, instead of the Revised Standard Version, which says besides women and children. And this poet was saying, oh yeah, after the women and children ate, the men got to eat, which I get, just reframes the whole story if you just take that one word, right, in English and read it as besides. But we'll go into a time of prayer. I'm glad to be with you all today. Excuse me, would like to kind of take a moment as we begin praying today to kind of do some centering prayer. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you're following along, in a few minutes, if you'd like to lift up a prayer request, you can put it in the comments or in the chat, and we'll read it out loud and incorporate that into our prayer. But before we do that, let's take just a moment to breathe and center ourselves and come into the present moment. So I'll invite you to, if you would like to close your eyes, you can. I'm going to close my eyes, even though I know I can't stare at you through the screen, but I'm going to close my eyes and take some deep breaths. And come into an awareness of your body and where you're sitting. If your eyes are closed, you might just take stock of how you feel today. And if your eyes are open, you might take a look around the room where you are. Just be aware of the space you're in. And take a couple more deep breaths with gratitude, feeling the way the air goes in your nostrils and fills your sinuses and your lungs. Feeling the way that your chest rises and falls with your breath. And let every breath be a breath of gratitude. Thank you for this moment. Gracious God, we remember that gratitude is the beginning of spirituality. So we come to you with thanksgiving for waking us up this morning. We give you thanksgiving for the heartbeat in our chests, recognizing that each squeeze of that muscle is a gift, a divine hug from you that enlivens and activates. We give you thanks that each breath we breathe is your breath. That our very conscious awareness is a gift from you, is part of the spirit that enlivens everyone and everything. And from this place of gratitude, we stretch our minds and our hearts over the planet, connecting with those people who are suffering, with people who are in a state of want, who feel under threat, who are fearful or worried, people who are in pain in their bodies because of hunger or because of injury or illness. And from this place of gratitude, we send our own love and support to the planet, to all its beings and all the people on it. knowing that you see each person in their individuality. You see every need and every hope. We lift up to you regions of the world like Ukraine and Niger, places where the conflict reaches us through the news. And we lift up to you all those places where there's conflict that never makes the news. God, bring peace even as you call us to be peacemakers. And we also lift up to you those individuals and situations who are close to us. We lift up to you our gratitude and our concerns. And in this community, I invite those of you who are listening, if you want to raise a prayer request, to put it in the chat or make a comment. I didn't specify. I'll keep an eye on YouTube if someone would also keep an eye on Facebook for prayer requests.
I have Facebook up, but I keep getting a notification that the live stream ended. You may want to double check on it. I don't
Okay.
know. It's weird.
Who knows with Facebook? Yeah, I will definitely check. Thank you.
Now it looks like it may be up again. I don't know.
Thank you.
Prayers for Ward Watson as he continues to heal.
Lord, hear our prayer.
Gratitude for my mom's successful cataract surgery.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Trevor and Joanna.
Lord, hear our prayer.
Prayers for those who cannot get out of the heat.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Connor.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Monica and Avon.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Schultz
Safe
Children's
travels.
Home.
Lord, hear our prayer.
Safe travels for Rob's parents.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For teachers and students returning to school this fall.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For people experiencing homelessness.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For those who can't access the medicines they need.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For those dealing with extreme weather.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For transgender people.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Barbara Billups and Joanne Lucas.
Lord, hear our prayer.
For Keisha and JD.
Lord, hear our prayer.
Gratitude for this church.
Lord, hear our prayer.
God of us all who loves us and holds us close, from our place of gratitude and concern, we lift up to you ourselves and the world and its brokenness. We ask you to come quickly and to make your kingdom known on this planet. And we share the prayer that Jesus taught us. Holy One, our Mother and Father, let your name be revered. Let your reign come. Let your will be done on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us today the bread we need for today, and forgive our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For yours is the sovereignty, the power, and the glory, now and forever. Amen. So before I kind of launch into the sermon today, or the message, or the Bible study, I actually don't know what we do, honestly. We gather around the text. I wanted to start with a question, which is the phrase "fear of God," and I want to talk a little bit today about the fear of God. And I want to preface it before I ask you to respond just to that phrase. When you hear that phrase, what do you think of? By saying that, I do think, as the Proverbs say, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. But I don't necessarily mean it the way that it's out there in the Christian verse. And I'm curious, and just your gut level impression, when you hear the phrase fear of God, what comes into your mind? What do you think of? And those of you who are watching too, by the way, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, if you want to put in the comments, feel free to be part of the discussion. So yeah, Tony, you got your hand up.
Control.
Yeah.
When people traditionally say that, it's usually about control. It's usually about them wanting you to do something that they want you to do, or not doing something that you want to do. The way that we have Americanized Christianity is absolutely abhorrent and nowhere near where, Christ would have wanted us to be. Like, literally, the people who do the least of his work say they're the best Christians. It makes absolutely no sense. So it's about control.
Yeah, I'm on board with you. Okay.
I know.
Okay, Paula, go ahead.
I agree with Tony completely.
Yeah.
In so many circles, it is about control and making you and whipping you into shape. For me, though, it has more to do with respect. To respect God and what God wants for humanity. I think that's the beginning of wisdom.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, Rob.
For me, it's funny. You can tell I have not been on the receiving end of like the most diseased interpretation of this, because I actually have some appreciation for this language.
Sure.
Where for me, what it speaks of is it's like a reminder that there will be accountability. That like there, you don't dodge the consequences of your actions, right? And this really pivots on the idea of how we're supposed to treat each other, how we're supposed to treat the creation, right? That like the fear of God is ultimately the acknowledgement that don't put yourself on the wrong side of justice, right? God is very, very concerned about the entire situation of everyone and everything on this planet. And so that's what it says to me, is when I tell when I'm thinking about the fear of God, it's like just remember you don't want to put yourself on the wrong side of that,
right? Kind of like as Tony and Paula were both saying, like I wish the people who use that phrase actually had it.
Yes.
That's what makes me
think. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Miller. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. I don't know if someone had their hand up. Go ahead, Miller.
Yeah, I don't know. So like I was just reminded of the fact that like Red America has this obsession right now with like revenge and retribution flicks, and you can see it if you go. Well, we saw it when we went to go see Indiana Jones, but like the trailers for all of these like revenge movies, and I feel like there is this sort of like vengeful God in a lot of people's minds, and like that's what they're afraid of. Like he's gonna get back at them,
right?
And I mean, hell is the specter that hangs there, but like,
yeah. Well, I just, and you tied it to movies, but I just think like that myth of redemptive violence, right, is so strong. Like we watch, like most of the movies, the bad guy gets beat up in the end or thrown off the building and Die Hard or whatever. But that's the thing. It's redemptive violence anyway. But
I have one more thing, Dave. I know that there's some Hebrew or ancient Aramaic word that we're using fear for that does not translate well. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right.
That's a good point. I haven't actually done a word study. I should do that. I don't know what the Hebrew is for that.
I'm
But
sure it's not what we translated it to. It should probably be more accountability, like Rob said, than fear, the way that we interpret and internalize it. It just that when you think about it, it just doesn't sit right.
Yeah, go ahead, Paula.
On the other hand, Tony, I feared my mother and I loved her deeply. I wanted to make her happy, but I was also aware there were consequences when I stepped over the line.
There's a difference between fearful and being afraid. I totally agree.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Since Miller brought up Indiana Jones, I did suddenly think about I'm having crazy personal epiphanies here, because like Raiders of the Lost Ark, lives rent free in my head all the time. And I'm thinking about like the climax of that movie really is exactly what I'm talking about. Like those Nazis have no fear of God, and they surely should have done.
Yes.
Right. And it's that comeuppance. It's just that sense. For me, it's that sense that like God will not be mocked, right? And in like the good way, not the I want you to do what I'm telling you to do because God sent me here to tell you what to do way, but
Absolutely.
in the why are you a freaking Nazi way, right?
Absolutely. No, yes, you should not want your face to melt. That's kind of like bedrock, that's fear of God. I don't want my face to melt.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's such a pivotal thing in my memory. The things we see and experience in adolescence stick with us for our whole lives, and that's definitely one of them. Top notch there. That's theology.
The theology of Indiana Jones is totally this God will not be mocked kind of thing. Because like Last Crusade too, right? The famous line, he chose poorly.
He chose poorly. It really is. Well, so I want to reflect a little bit on fear and exactly what you guys are saying. I think you hear whenever anyone says, "I put the fear of God into somebody," like if you've heard someone say that, right? And they never actually mean God. They mean the fear of them. Like I wouldn't put the fear of God in him. No, actually what you did is you threatened him. That's what happened. And so like and I think that's the way it gets used from the pulpit and from other places. If I'm trying to make someone else afraid, and I'm talking about hellfire and brimstone or all the terrible things are going to happen to you if you don't, straighten up and fly right, or be straight, speaking of, or any number of other things, right? If you don't do what I tell you should do, then God, I'm speaking for God. God's going to kick your butt, and that's kind of generally what the fear of God means. Oftentimes, when it's used in popular parlance, and we have a lot of people who've experienced that, and so that's one reason I try to approach this kind of delicately in a trauma-informed way, because I work with people who often have obsessive compulsive disorder. They have a fear of God every day. Like I'm a bad person because of something I did long ago, or I'm going to accidentally slip up and I'm going to say 666 and the devil's going to come in, or I'm going to literally, I can't leave 6 books stacked on each other. I have to make it 7. Otherwise I'm going to invite the devil in. I mean, it's that fear. And even though that's clinical, socially, I think it's pervasive. It's the same thing. I was told that Dungeons and Dragons would invite the devil in, and that my friends were going to hell because they played Dungeons and Dragons or listened to heavy metal music. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so that was pervasive too. The fear of God and the fear of the satanic panic, that kind of stuff. And but I do think, as Rob, as you're saying, and part of this may be the privilege of being a straight white guy. I remember being a kid asking my parents, what does it mean, fear of God? And they said it's more like respect. That we really think it should be more like respect. And I think that's a good way to think of it. However, my own spiritual experience, and I'll share, in 2018, some of you, I was part of a study of psychedelics and mystical experience, and clinical medically supervised study where I took magic psilocybin, the chemical and magic mushrooms, and had a 6-hour I believe it's a legitimate spiritual experience. I don't think I was high. I don't think I was just hallucinating. I think I was making contact with a deeper reality. And part of that reality was freaking terrifying. But before my session, my guides told me what to do if I encountered what they called a challenging experience. They said frequently what happens in a challenging experience is you confront the destroyer, a malevolent presence, could be a dragon, could be a demon, could be the devil, but encountering a malevolent presence, or you might feel like you're going to die. I'm dying, or I'm going into an abyss, emptiness, and that's terrifying. The abyss, by the way, is terrifying. Okay. Or you may think I'm going crazy. I've been tricked. I've taken this pill, and now I'm never going to be able to get back to my normal way of my normal consciousness. And what they said was, when you encounter a challenging experience, instead of fighting it or running away from it, what you do is you approach it with curiosity. Is that if it's a dragon, you say, what do you have to teach me? And you approach it. If it's dying, you go, well, let's see what it's like to die. If it's going crazy, then you say, well, let's go crazy for a little while. Let's see what that's like. But in all the cases, you approach it with curiosity, and instead of attacking or fleeing, fight or flight, you stick with it. You hold on to it. And that's what I get out of this Jacob story. And I think I've shared with you before, one of my big takeaways from that experience is that this is the trip. Like, this is the hallucination. Right? This is what we're experiencing right now. And it takes all the same lessons to navigate it as it does the other one, which is to approach it with curiosity. When you encounter something that makes you afraid or makes you angry, try to have curiosity about it, and the experience will be transformed. When I read this story about Jacob encountering it just says a man wrestled him. It's so ambiguous. It doesn't say God came down. Some will say, it's an angel. It's a divine presence, but it just attacks him. And you see that happen sometimes in the Hebrew Bible. God just attacks Moses for no reason. God just attacks Jacob. God just like comes out of nowhere. Bleh! And there's a fight, or there's a struggle, and that's part of the encounter with God. God isn't a cuddly teddy bear. And I think oftentimes in especially in progressive Christianity, to resist the toxic Christianity out there that is all about control, sometimes we make God into a teddy bear. Now, I do think God is loving. I think everything that holds the universe together is love. But I also think that love can be terrifying when you encounter its pure form. I think somehow Jacob encountered God in God's rawest form, and he was terrified. It may be even that this man, it says the man attacked him. I'll take the author's word for it, but I can totally imagine Jacob believing that he was being attacked just because God is so terrifying, and that he may have hit first. I don't know. Regardless, at the end, he finds out God doesn't fight fair. And God either knees him in the groin or dislocates his hip, and he continues to hang on. And the crazy thing is, as he's hanging on, he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. And I think there's something powerful in that, about that attitude of curiosity, of refusing to give up or it's not a passive thing. It's not, oh, okay, God just bless me. It's, I'm going to hang on to you and demand a blessing. Somehow Jacob realized who he was fighting with, and it left him at the end, he's both blessed and wounded. And I think that's sort of the state that we find ourselves in, being both blessed and wounded when we have an honest encounter with God. When spiritual experience. So when people talk about fear of God and it doesn't reflect that kind of understanding, if it's just, I'm saying this because I want other people to be afraid, I think the fear of God doesn't need any icing on it. I don't think it needs to be made fearful by people. I don't think it needs lake of fire. I don't think it needs demons with horns and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think the fear of God is enough without all these stuff, all the crap that we pile on top of it. Right. And it's more of an existential fear. And if someone isn't talking about it like that, I think they're pulling your leg. And that's where I'll stop. So love to hear your feedback. Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to offer that I mean, you really put your finger on it by highlighting the degree to which what people fear punishment.
Mm.
And because they're used to punishment, right? They've been punished before. And there's this sort of delusion that the fear of God is really just about the fear of divine punishment, because, as divine punishment, it must be so much even worse, right? And that becomes a weapon that people get to wield.
Mm-hmm.
And I like your point about it actually being an existential fear, where like really we need a different word. Like it honestly, I'm going to go to the word humility.
Mm.
That like, you know, we're not talking about Santa Claus, right? For all, I mean, the alternative to God being a God of love is too awful to contemplate, right? So very, very thankful that God is a God of love, but it's really about all these other existential claims, these philosophical claims that go into the idea of God as a necessary being, and the idea that, like, no, we're talking about encounters with the fundament of reality.
Yeah.
Like how, it's too big for your mind. Like, you know, that, I mean, again, that's intellectually, suddenly I'm in that place of like prostrate myself, right? Like, I don't know what else to do except to prostrate myself. Just like, whew, this is too big for me, right? I'm a man of unclean lips, right? I mean, instantly it takes you to that place. Yeah. And so I think it's absolutely about the humility of recognizing what it means to be talking about who we're talking about when we talk about God.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Go ahead, Paula.
I like the idea that fear and blessing go hand in hand. Mary was told that she was blessed among women.
Mm-hmm.
She was also told a sword would pierce through her heart.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all goodness and light. And so many of the biblical characters who are blessed also go through deep pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have been blessed by having 3 wonderful children that can hurt me more than anything else in the world.
Yeah.
And it never stops. My oldest is 47 now, and there are still times when I want to cry because of what's happening in her life at that moment, or something she said to me occasionally. And to me, and this is just my opinion, I don't have any wonderful Greek or Hebrew words for it, Tony. To be blessed by God doesn't mean he's about to make sparkly magic and make your life wonderful. Every time God blesses someone, it seems that he's about to use them to do something to expand his kingdom. And I think it's very dangerous to be blessed, because if God's going to use you, you can just expect pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think of Moses saying, God, just choose somebody else. You know, really? Yes. Thank you for that. Absolutely. Go ahead, Miller.
Yeah. I think science fiction does a really good job of sort of addressing this like fear element of the divine and our interaction with the divine, because so often in Star Trek, when they're dealing with these like incomprehensible energy beings, like you can't understand their motives because they're on a completely different plane of reality. They're so much bigger than you. I mean, I think like there was the whole season of Star Trek Discovery about these beings that were interacting with them, and they were so angry at them for what they were doing, and they didn't really understand why they were doing it, you know? And I get this impression that like maybe Jacob, as he starts to realize, you know, oh man, I am
Yeah.
wrestling with God.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
at what point does that hit him? And he's like, well, his idea is, well, I shouldn't let go.
Right.
You know, I got to figure out what's going on here, and maybe I can make this work for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and as you said that, it made me think of two other scriptures, right? Which is, where can I go to flee from you? Which typically we're like, oh, that's so lovely. No, it's like, where can I go to flee from you? You can't escape. You know? That's one. And the other thing, as you were saying that, it made me think, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Like that same, the being that causes that fear in me made me. And even when I consider, the fact that there are more cells that are not human in me than there are human cells, that's a fearful and wonderful thing. I'm amazed. We should be walking around in a state of awe all the time. Yeah.
We're
Go ahead.
we're gonna have to do a word study on the word fear, because like,
Yeah.
how are you fearfully made? Like, and then the other thing is, didn't another verse say God didn't give us the spirit of fear? Like, are we supposed to be fearful or not? Like,
Right. Perfect love casts out fear.
right. So like, I mean, like, I really like, I just wish people, one thing, I was listening to you earlier, and you always say, I think. You never say that you know. And I think that thinking is the basis of faith. I think when you say that you know something, that means you know it without a shadow of doubt. So if you know without a shadow of a doubt, then why would you need faith? And so, like, I really wish more people would think, that whole mental noise thing, because, like, when we think we know everything, it just sets us up for failure. I had a conversation with my boss during my mid-year review. It was about a potential incident that could have happened, the things that got out of hand. And he said, I was concerned about that because you I felt like you wanted to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, let me tell you something. I do not argue with people's opinions or feelings or emotions, because they are totally screwed up. But when I know that I'm right about something, I will wrestle you to the mat. And anybody else. Because I'm never, I don't, I mean, like, just getting on Facebook sometimes, like, oh my God, really? What y'all experts on today? And like, literally, if I know that the sky is blue and you say, well, I think I'm not going to argue with you about that. I'm going to let you go over there and rest in that. But like, when I know that I know that I know, it's one of those things. We need to do a word study on fear.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I didn't actually. I've studied Hebrew on my own. I didn't take it in school. I took Greek. I managed to get away without taking Hebrew. So, but even if I had, I would forget it, because I don't remember German or French either. So, go ahead, Paula.
The whole "we are fearfully made," and every other sense of fear, I connect to the word "all." When we are afraid of something, it's because we're in awe of it. And so, I am in awe of life, of the human body, of things it can do, and its creativity. So, I can say we're fearfully made if I connect that word to awe. Sometimes with this whole aging process, though, I am really fearful. It's you can't get away from the two, just like the blessing and the curse are related. I think fear and awe are related, and you can see both aspects in all of it.
I like that, Paula. I like awe. It much more than fear.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Miller.
I just wanted to read some of these comments because they're good.
Oh, be sure you read yours too, because you got that pun there.
Oh, mine. Well, I made a joke about God pulling Jacob's leg.
I didn't even think of that when I said it.
That one's for free. So Chris said, had a really good one. Fear is the heart of love, is a cornerstone of toxic Christianity. It allows for the systems of control and exploitation to move without restrictions or questions.
Absolutely.
And, Rob pointed out that that's a Death Cab for Cutie lyric too, and it's a very good song.
Mhm.
I can't. Do you remember the name of the song, Rob?
Yeah, it's well, I will follow you into the dark.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Let's see. And then Angela says, in our last episode, Jacob tricked a blessing from his physical father and was sent hobbling away metaphorically. This time, he's more direct, demanding a blessing, and his wound is more direct as well.
Oh, that's nice.
Very good.
Ooh, yeah.
Can we read Rob's other comment though?
Yeah.
The meme about the lady buying the food and added the $6.66. She said, "Well, I better throw in a corn dog." Let me tell you, one of my Capital One credit card balance was $666.82. And look, until I made my payment the other day, I was like, "Lord, do I really want to give into this?" And I did not give into it. I did not give into it.
Good for you for resisting.
I did not get it. I was like, let me just go make $1 payment until.
That's what we tell people who have OCD. It's like resist that compulsion to give in to the fear, right? Oh man. Yeah, I mean
when we moved to Washington, we registered our car license plate. It has a 666 on it, and they hand me that plate. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, "You didn't ask about that." You didn't say anything.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Felt like it would be playing to type, right? Like, yeah, we just moved here from Alabama. Can I please have a different license plate?
But you know that was never a problem till that movie The Omen came out.
Problem in the church I grew up in.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
It was a problem in the church I grew up in. From the time I was a child, they were parsing Revelations over and over again.
Oh, right.
We knew about 666.
Well, just because you mentioned Revelation, it made me think of what Rob was saying earlier. There's a line that I love in Revelation when I don't remember the verse number, but it's toward the end as God is gathering up everybody for judgment. One of the lines is, "It's time to destroy those who destroy the earth," which I'm like, talk about fear of God. I mean, hello, Exxon, hello, what's the mansion, whatever the guy's name is, talking about people who destroy the earth. Like that's who's got to go and destroy those who destroy the earth. All right. Why isn't that on bumper stickers? Why isn't that on billboards? If we're talking about
cognitive dissonance is the answer, sir.
Right, absolutely right. If we're going to talk about fear of God, let's talk about fear of God. But no, we're not. We're going to ignore that part, and we're going to focus on Sodom and Gomorrah and our own crazy interpretation of that, right? Instead of, anyway, yeah. So, climate. We need a Raiders of the, yes. Rob says time for the climate change Raiders of the Lost Ark supercut. Absolutely. I want to see some CEOs faces melt. That's what.
Look, totally not related. Star Trek Strange New World had a musical on the last episode. It was excellent.
I need to see that. I've heard it was good.
It was excellent.
Is that on what is that streaming service?
It's on Paramount.
Paramount Plus.
I don't have Paramount, so I have to get that to look at that.
Well, I was
other thoughts. Other thoughts about fear of God, either from our panel or from YouTube or Facebook.
Back to Miller or Paula mentioned earlier about Jacob, tricking blessings out of folks.
Yeah.
But it just seems like those are the things that we don't really talk about that seem to be pervasive in Christianity. Like all the tricks that people do to try to get you to be a good Christian or attend church. I remember one of my friends with this church in Atlanta, and it was a new church that was starting out, had a fairly okay sized congregation, But somehow or another, it was Wednesday night service, and the pastor decided to tell everybody to bring all their bills up to the altar, and he paid all of them, saying that this was God's blessing. That was a way of tricking people to come to church, because you just never know when God gonna pay your bills again. Like, can you just not just be honest with people? Just be honest with people and tell them what they need to hear and just move on. I think that's why I like this church, because I have to worry about being forced to go proselytize people and, knock on windows every Saturday morning. Like, it's crazy.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was just thinking again about, Tony and others talked about using this idea of the fear of God for control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that, the climate change, Raiders of the Lost Ark supercut, and it suddenly made me think about the movie There Will Be Blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh wow, Daniel Day-Lewis in that movie is such a character who I would say has no fear of God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think, oh, okay, what am I actually talking about here? What is the fear of God a euphemism for? And I think it's the opposite of hubris.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to propose that, because I suddenly, so then I was thinking, okay, hubris, yeah, that comes from Greek. And that's the idea that some people are just so full of themselves, egotistical, demanding power, demanding control. They can do whatever they want to whomever with whatever they want. They have no respect for, in the ancient Greek imagination, the divinely appointed limits on human action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there will be bad consequences for that defiance of those limits. So anyway, yeah, hubris, useful idea. I think maybe the idea of the fear of God is simply the opposite of hubris.
Right, kind of the contrasting thing. And you get that. I mean, that's definitely a theme in Christianity. It's also a theme in Greek religion. Like, oh, my child is more beautiful than Aphrodite. Oh, that was a mistake. Don't say that. But the idea, I mean, it really is. I think you're right. It's setting yourself up as God, or not acknowledging. I mean, not having humility. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for a very rich discussion. I'm going to go ahead and put the liturgy back up on screen so that we can wrap up. All right.
Okay. Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto God. O thou God of Ethiopia, thou God of divine majesty, thy spirit come within our hearts to dwell in the paths of righteousness, that the hungry shall be fed, the sick nourished, the aged protected, and the infant cared for. Teach us love and loyalty as it is in Zion. Amen.
God is love. Nothing is wasted. All things shall be well. Go in peace.
So thanks again. Thanks for those of you who have attended on Facebook and YouTube. Again, if you don't mind just clicking like or leave a note of where you're watching from, that gives us a way to count you. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream. If those of you who are on Zoom will stick around for a minute more. Oh, I almost forgot. If you're in Birmingham and you would like to come to an in-person house church, Tony, y'all are meeting next week at 2. Is that the plan? Okay. So, and that'll be posted on the Facebook St. Junia page.
I put my phone number and address in the chat.
Okay, yeah. So and that will also be on the. I don't want to put that in Facebook and YouTube, but we'll put that on the on the St. Junia page on Facebook. So, all right. I'm going to stop the stream. Those of you on Zoom, stick around for a minute if you would.
My phone number's been worse places, but okay.